Welcome to Healers with Humor.
Where healing meets heart and a whole lot of vulnerability.
We're your hosts, Candice and Shelly, two healers navigating life, love, and all the messy moments in between.
Because we believe that healing isn't just about crystals and meditation. It's about embracing the chaos, learning from the challenges, and finding joy in the journey.
Each week, we'll share real stories, insightful conversations, and maybe even a few awkward truths just to help you navigate your own healing path.
And guess what? This season, we're bringing in special guests to share their wisdom and inspire even more connection.
So grab your favorite cup of coffee or tea, or just settle right in and get ready for laughs, lessons, and a whole lot of light. This is Healers with Humor. Welcome back, Bright Lights, to Healers with Humor, Season 2, Episode 11. Your Soul Has a Number, the healing side of numerology, our interview with Elissa. I'm Candice.
And I'm Shelly.
Hi, everyone. We are back with another interview. We are very excited to talk to Elissa today. But of course, before we get started, we have a couple of our favorite things. The candle of the episode today is always from Soul Love with Lindsay. And I don't think we've had this one come up before. So today's candle is Blossom. So the intention candle of Blossom really couldn't be more fitting for our discussion. So in ancient civilizations, the lotus flower was revered for its ability to rise above the murky waters it grew in, untouched and even more beautiful for the adversity that it moved through. And in a lot of ways, that's what this conversation around numerology feels like to me. So it's about understanding who we are at our core, not through judgment, but through compassion, grace, and expansion. So when we understand our life paths, our numbers, our traits, we give ourselves the chance to blossom into who we were always meant to be, even if we had to move through some of the murky waters to get there. And then the favorite thing today, really connecting into my intuition around this one, was an essential oil. And I thought, well, I've worked with lots of essential oils over the years. But the one that really pinged today was Ylang Ylang. So it's YLANG, Ylang Ylang. And so I've worked with this a lot in my healing journey. And I've leaned into essential oils quite a bit to help me. And Ylang Ylang is really at the center because it's about the heart chakra. And that's really a lot of work that I've done is around healing my heart. And so it really helps to gently open the heart chakra. It's helped heal my patterns of seeking for validation outside of myself. That was is still sometimes a real thing. And it just helps me soften the tendency that I have to just push right through everything, right? Even when I don't want to be there or do something. So it's helped me soften that aspect. And then it's helped me reconnect with my self-worth, which is a big piece of my journey. So those are just a few things for us before we got started, but I'm going to kick it off to Shelly to introduce.
Yes. So I get the pleasure to introduce Elissa Cohen-Michel to you of Nightbloom Numerology. She's a mom of 2 grown children, Molly and Ian, and 2 fur babies. She's been married to her husband, Brett, for 26 years. She grew up in the Catskills of New York, living just outside Woodstock, but has also called New Jersey home for the last 36 years. She's a psychology major turned teacher, and she's been a middle school ELA teacher for over 28 years. Both areas of focus have deepened her compassion and understanding of human nature and the human experience. Haven't we all been doing that? However, her connection with the spirit world started when she was quite young. So premonitions started coming in about incoming phone calls, intuitive dreams about loved ones, and having a deep knowing often before things happen has started to weave their way into her life since she was a child. During the pandemic, she was encouraged by a psychic friend, Michael, the practical magi, to explore her intuition a little bit more deeply. And with Michael's guidance, she studied both tarot and numerology, while using both as a means for expanding and trusting her intuition. And so, welcome today to Elissa and of Nightbloom Numerology.
Thank you.
Hey. So we're excited. I want to share a little bit about how I met Elissa. So we have a mutual friend, Nicole, that we've actually talked about before on this podcast, Rise with me. Um, and Elissa came to one of my healing circles. So the Courageous Healing Conversations. She actually came to a bunch of them. So that's how we met. And then I learned through that process that she was doing numerology. And so I really was in the season of getting to know myself on a deeper level. And I thought, numerology feels like another language that I can learn to explore and kind of understand myself in a new way. So I asked Elissa to do a reading, which she was amazing at. Not only thorough, but deeply intuitive. She didn't just recite the facts from the book, right? She had um, her own format, her own layout for how she interpreted the numbers, using her own intuitive gifts and internal guidance. So I learned that I'm a life path one, which speaks to being a leader, someone who's driven and hardworking, perhaps a little judgmental at times. And if you know me, those are all probably really true things. But what stuck out most for me was how the reading didn't just confirm the things I already knew, right? It helped me see them in a little bit of a different way. It softened my edges, so to speak. And it gave me more acceptance for the traits that I had judged in myself. So it showed me how they're actually part of my purpose. So talk to us, Elissa. Talk to us about how numerology came in for you, how you use it for yourself, and then potentially for your clients. That's all speak.
So it's a mouthful, right? I think it's important for people to have a basic understanding because, people think numerology, like, what is this woo-woo thing? And it actually connects back to Pythagorean, um, uh, Pythagorean theorem. And it's pretty concrete. So for people that are a little bit timid, that's actually what appealed to me. Is that it's a pretty concrete way of understanding energies and vibrations. And that's really what numerology is. It studies energetic vibrations of numbers.
Oh.
And every letter of our alphabet is assigned a number. It goes on a scale of 1 to 9, which really parallels like the cyclical nature, the 9-year cycles that often we see in the spiritual realm, but also, specific to numerology. And, so the numbers are really concrete symbols that help us to understand life events, unique synchronicities. And so for myself, I use it for, self-awareness, understanding. But it also can help me, to help others to point out cycles, patterns, where we have life lessons, because that's really what it's all about, right? It's another avenue, another tool to help us self-reflect.
Yeah. And when you do a reading, so obviously life path is the what people are more common knowledge, right? People have heard
Right.
that before.
Absolutely.
But when you do a reading, and you may talk about this a little bit later, so if you don't want to talk about that, that's totally fine. But there's lots of other numerology pieces to a person's being, right? Like you talked about their name, obviously their birth date, but there's other predictors or there's other pieces of information.
Yeah, everything from the
within.
vowels in your name, the consonants in your name, the combination of those, what's missing, the anchors of your name, the C for Candice, the E, all of those things take on their own energetic value or, energetic pattern. And it is wild to see, like, you have to see it to kind of seeing is believing. And every time I do a chart, I'm doing right now charts for a family of 4, it just blows my mind.
Nice.
Just to see how they may cross over. I actually didn't do my own family's charts till much later in life. I didn't come to numerology until later in life as well. But even in doing my own 4 of my husband, myself, and my children, it it makes so much sense, personalities, character traits, and so forth.
Okay.
And that's really, what I hope that I can bring to people, like to make some sense of it. That when you're on that healing journey, because that was, that's what it's all about. Um, it helps you with that reflection piece, right? So for me, numerology is about understanding like our story, our journey, in a different way. Um, and everybody's path's unique. Everybody's very individual. But again, there's those synchronicities. There's those patterns. They're just undeniable. And that's the stuff where it's like those wow moments. I grew up in 8 Cliff Drive. My grandparents lived at 71 Ocean Parkway. 7 and 1 is 8.
Ah.
And those are things that it's part of reflection. It's part of and 8s are all about let's get down to business. Let's, and my grandfather owned a business. It's just it's very fascinating to really pull apart the numbers and what they mean.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and my birthday, right, is August 26th, so that's an 88.
Exactly.
Ah.
But you add that together, you get an 8 and an 8, and then that becomes a 16, which then becomes a 7, and we can go on and on and on with that. And then 7, there's your spirituality piece,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, so I love that. So you've already started to talk about how our guests might or how our audience might be able to use numerology for healing, right? You started talking about house numbers, the birth date, your name, and self-awareness and life lessons.
Yeah.
Is that predominantly how you're doing it? And are there other things that I didn't capture on how it might be utilized for healing?
I mean, I feel like that's the greatest manner in which you're going to be able to kind of see into moments and reflect. I think it forces reflection. Um, and there's so many different types of numbers that you do, but I focus on about 8 to 9 basic numbers. And so some of it, like your life path number or your life path that you had talked about, that's really about the journey that you're on. But then you throw in a destiny number, which is calculated just, one's based on your birth date, one's based on your birth name. And all of those feed into your identity. Who are you? And what are you doing here? Right. And so your life path can speak more to your character and the actual path that you're on. But your destiny, based on your birth name, may tell us more about what are those like innate abilities that you have that you're going to utilize to get along, to follow along in your path on your journey.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love this. So this plays right into everything that Candice and I have been sharing on the podcast is how do you uncover some of those things? And I also love the fact that you highlighted doing this for a family, not just an individual, because right, we've heard about astrology for the family and kind of how everyone plays together. Numerology for a family would be really interesting and important as well.
Yeah.
It is, and I play with it using my family kind of as my my test. And when I add all of our life paths together, it comes back to one. And it's interesting because we're a very tight knit family, the 4 of us. Sometimes it'd be too tight, uh, but in a way that people have often said, "Wow, you guys are like incredibly loyal to each other." It's not so much an interdependence as much as just like, I don't know, there's just extreme reverence for each individual as we come together. And so to have our life paths add up to one, and one is a number of individuality,
Mhm.
but it's also, beginnings, right? And so it's really it's neat. We recently moved and we were at 21 Lakeshore, was our first home together, my husband and myself. And 21 is creativity. It becomes a 3. It's creativity, creation. We created a family there. And we ended the second of a 9-year cycle selling our home over the summer. And now we are at 19 as our house number, which becomes a 1. And here we are beginning again. I mean, the synchronicities are wild. They're on, and I just find my head just kind of does that. It just brain, and I'm not even a numbers person as much, I'm an English teacher. But I am a patterns person, and I look through those things, and it's from the patterns that we can start to kind of weed away a bit and start to understand, well, what are those patterns in my life? Are they good patterns? Are they not so healthy? And how can I pivot if I need to pivot? How can I embrace what I want to embrace? So I feel like they all kind of piggyback, one feeding into the other.
Definitely. So we already started talking about it a bit, but help us, help our listeners if they want to calculate their own life path number. Let's do a calculation so they can understand how to reduce the numbers.
So my birthday is 9/7/1970. So we're going to add everything together until it becomes a single number. The 9 plus the 7. So September 7th, 9 and 7. And then, so that's 16. And then we have for 1970, we have 10 plus 7, right? And so that's 16 plus 17, essentially. When we do 16 and 17, we get 33. That becomes, it's really a master number, 36, because there are some numbers that vibrate just a little bit more than your solid number. So 33/6 is one of those that you don't reduce. But really a 6 life path is the mama bear. All about the home, all about the family, all about the love and the joy of and the nurturing. 33/6 is a little bit more like, the mama bear on steroids.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's why you're a teacher, right?
Correct. And you just keep adding along as you go. So if I were to do my daughter's birthday, April 17th, 2002. So I take the 4 plus the 1 and 7 becomes an 8, plus the 2002 is a 4. So I have 8 plus 8, essentially, which is a 16. And that then becomes a 7 life path, which could not be Molly more. Could not be Molly if we tried. And it's really interesting because I'm born on September 7th. And I had the opportunity to choose which day she was going to be born. Was it going to be the 16th, 17th, or 18th because I was being induced? And I don't ask me where, because again, this was before I studied numerology. I was in, I wanted her to have a 7 so that we would share it.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh.
But I was specific to the number, not just because 16 would have become a 7 in numerology. But I wanted the actual 7.
interesting.
So here's where I tell you that you and I have the same master number and life path number. So I love that.
Oh,
I'm a 633.
That's wonderful. I love it. I love that.
Yeah. So you're the expert. Okay. So now I know the expert on this life path and master number.
Now Shelly wants to know all the things.
The ask away, but the synchronicities. It's funny because, like I said, I really wanted something concrete, and I really started studying this during the pandemic heavily. So it's interesting, even like in reflecting, like I needed something concrete in a time where things were not concrete. But if I really, really look back over my life, because I shared them with you that I've had intuition since I was young. I just didn't know what it was, and don't we all, right? But it really, the first time that a time and a date and a number stuck in my head was actually December 24th, 1995. And the time was 11:36. And that was the moment, and I can still get goosebumps, where I went into an absolute panic. And I said to my then boyfriend, but now husband, I got to talk to my Nana. I need to speak to her. And she wasn't well. And fast forward, long story short, that was the exact time that she passed.
Wow.
And so the thread, who knew, right? But that's a synchronicity. It's not a coincidence, right? There's a connection, and it's only in retrospect. And isn't that part of the healing journey? fletching back, looking back and seeing where are those synchronicities in my life, and what seems like a very sad and tragic, well, not tragic, I mean, she lived a long life, but a very sad,
Yeah.
um, you know, part of life actually had a beautiful connection that I don't think I truly appreciated until, in
Uh-huh.
retrospect. Um,
Uh,
and those are the kinds of
Mm.
things where it can't be. It can't be.
yeah, where numerology helps you see too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Definitely. So, as you do readings for your family, other families, what are, what are some of the greatest joys that you have in helping others on their journey? Because again, it's a language that not a lot of people know.
And it's very personal, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think here's where the teacher part of me kicks in. And perhaps it is the 33-6 because, many six life paths, 33, sixes and so forth. Six is the nurturer. It's the person that people come to learn lessons and so forth. Um, and so for me, it's all about listening to people's stories. I mean, Candice, we didn't know each other. We didn't know each other. And one of the first things I said to you is, you got to get the story out, write the book, right?
Yeah.
And, so to me, I'm, I feel so blessed when I get to connect with people. It's like I do the charts. I'm sitting at home, calculating numbers and stuff, which is kind of funny for an English teacher. So start to giggle, and my family's like, "What are you doing?" And it's just the synchronicity of numbers, then I look at life, pinnacles and challenges, the highs and lows and stuff, and it's those wow moments, it's aha moments, whether I know the person or I don't. And, so, I'm watching a story unfold.
Mhm.
Numerology is like part of your story map, right? And so to help people make those connections, that's everything. And to me, it's also, I'm all about people being able to express themselves, share their voice. At the end of the day, that's what everybody wants. Please hear me.
Uh-huh.
I think numerology, it can be used in that way so that the more we understand, the more we're healing, the more something resonates, the more we can express. And
Yeah.
so to me, when we talk about joy, like to me, it's like a compass for your soul, numerology.
Oh,
And, you
I
know,
like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
and, when I look at somebody's numbers, it helps me understand their story. It helps me find helps me to help them find their voice, tell their truth. Again, that's the teacher in me.
Yeah. You're able to weave it and bring it through for them. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And you want to be able, sometimes when I teach, I can read people's faces.
Mhm.
With numbers, it's a whole different, you know, alphabet, so to speak, of symbols that helps me to understand. Uh, and when you understand your numbers, it helps you to kind of open up that throat chakra, which
Mm.
for me,
Oh,
that's closed a lot. And I have
uh-huh.
to look
Mhm.
back. Well,
Yeah.
why is it? What's going on? We all have to, look back and see, well, what is it that's closing me off at this moment in time? And and why and what can I learn from it?
Yeah. Well, and that's where the
Uh-huh.
healing piece comes in, right? So it's that reflection point to say, when did my throat chakra get closed or my heart chakra or whatever?
Exactly.
And how am I going to work through
And
that?
look
And
at how
that's,
that ties in perfectly with what you do.
yeah.
Human
Yeah.
design, like,
Yeah.
like it's everything.
Mhm.
All
Yes.
are interwoven.
Yeah. So exactly. And so from what Shelly does with Reiki and with her energy healing, with people, pets, and places. And then to your point, for me, from body code and emotion code and belief code, we can really get underneath where that point is coming from. So, like, why is my throat chakra? And I love
Yeah.
how this always comes up. It's always working.
I know.
It's always working on her throat chakra.
I think I coughed through all of season 1.
Understood.
And it helps. So when people are able to garner those pieces of information, right? And then they can come to us and say, well, this is what my numerology is saying, or this is what my astrology is saying. Help me, understand where I have some trapped emotions or
Right.
stuck energy or all, whatever those things are. So yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so if you're thinking about, like, what listeners what might be, 2 or 3 tips for listeners who are on their own journey, does something come to mind for you?
Um, so, I mean, here's the big, so to me, the most important thing. There is no one way, right? There's no right way to move on your journey. And it has to be something that resonates and feels right to you. Again, for me, numbers were concrete. They were concrete and they came to me in a time where nothing was concrete. They were concrete in a time where, here I am professionally an English teacher. How can this make sense to me? Right. So it's symbolism. But for everybody's different and what's going to resonate is different. I studied tarot as well. And um that fascinates me. The symbolism in the pictures fascinates me and so forth. It tells a story. I don't, you know, I could use it. It does not come to me as naturally. And
Oh,
I think it's, there, and there's a reason for that, right? And um, I am a concrete person. It's part of my learning process. I know that about myself. And so, going hand in hand with, you know, acknowledging that there's no one right way is also it's all about reflection, right? When I acknowledge that I'm also reflecting, the growth doesn't come if you're not looking back, right? Doesn't mean you have to
oh.
dwell. Does and there's a difference, right? You don't have to dwell in the
Yeah.
past. Look back. What was I supposed to learn then? And to me, like we, I've seen a lot of patterns repeat in my life, and I'm sure you know everybody could point to a moment where in time where that's happened for them. And the question really becomes, okay, but what am I supposed to get out of this? Where am I supposed to go with this? And with numerology being 9-year cycles, Candice, when you ask when you do your chart, again, an update of it, what do? We look back at, okay, the universe is is in a 9. And that's, that should be pretty humanitarian effort, so on and so forth. And there's the reflection and so forth and intrinsically within a 9. But where do you fall in that, right? So
Right.
then you get your own personal number. So for me, the universe is in a 9. I'm in a 7. And a 7 for my personal year this year it's about taking that next step with spirituality.
I'm in a
Expand
7-year too, you know that.
yes.
Did you use my chart?
About expanding that intuition, right?
Mhm.
And it's not just acknowledging it. I mean, that's the first step, but then it's expanding it. And then, like through all of that, through the understanding that there's no one right way and the reflection,
Mhm.
it just comes down to listening, not only to your own voice, but to the voice of others. And, some are like-minded, some aren't. And that's okay. Where and just, to me, it's all about people's stories.
Yeah. Well, and what
That's
I love about how you do your readings, well, first of all, I have a spreadsheet, so I love that. But yeah, for me, when we did the update, because it's not just like a one and done, right? Like you get your original chart and you get the destiny numbers and all you said the 8 or 9 different things, right? Challenges, the pinnacles. But then every year you have your own personal year. And so I had you do a chart for me and my husband. Lucky him, he is also in a 9-year, personal 9-year. So lots of endings, right?
yeah.
Um, but for me, when I looked at it, and I remember saying something to Shelly, and I was like, I got my numerology, and good Lord, it's all about introspection. How much more introspection could I do?
But you have bookends of introspection. You begin your year, January through March, that first quarter, right? In a 7, and you bookend it October through December with a 7. But in between, you're supposed to have some adventure and newness and creativity and creating. You have the 5 and you have the 3. And right now, April through June is all about the new and the adventure. And then July to September is that self-expression.
Yeah. Which I think is hysterical because we were chatting before we got on this call, before we got on with you. Shelly and I were chatting and catching up. And so we're in April right now. We're at the end of April while we're recording. This episode will come out probably, in August sometime. But the beginning of this year, 100% for me personally, was all about introspection. I was doing a couple of different classes. I was doing Carolyn Miss work on archetypes, a deep dive on that. I was doing other spiritual work. So I really was. And it's funny because sometimes we don't recognize within ourselves what we're actually doing. But I said to Shelly, I was like, really more introspection? She's like, yeah, but you're already there. You're already doing it. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, it's fun. For you couple that because to me, it's interesting because your chart is fascinating in that you bookend with introspection for your pinnacles, but you bookend with sensitivity for challenges. And remember, we talked about it's not just emotional sensitivity. It could be sensitivity to, allergies. It could be, food sensitivities. And so, but ultimate, it could be health. It can be intuitive. It could be the emotional. But you bookend those 2 things as well, right, with the spirituality. Well, of course, as your spirituality is going and growing, what's going to happen? You're more sensitive.
Yeah. Well, and today was, yeah, you can't make that up. Exactly. And as we were chatting right before we got on, I was like, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a new season. I feel like today was, for me, was a lot about grief. I had a lot of grief that came up about the old version of who I was and how she walked in this world and this new version of me that's being born, right? And that's what you just talked about. So you can't make that stuff up.
You're right on schedule.
Correct. I mean, you are 100% right on schedule. And listen, it's fluid. It's not, to the very moment. But at the end, and sometimes it is, obviously,
Right.
as I like with my grandmother. But for the most part, it's fluid. But it's what you take from that, right? So if you're saying that you felt some grief, okay, and it's okay, right? Let's look back, let's reflect. But holy cow, look how far you've come in your journey. That you are now able to take that, understand it, and then do what we all hope to be able to do, help others. Right? Take that next step. And you do that all the time, probably to a fault, as we've talked about in the past, probably still to a fault, which, that also is the life lesson.
Yes. So many
Love
lessons
that.
to live
Goes
in.
hand in hand with the one life path, because when you feel you have to do it all the time by yourself, and you are constantly doing for others, then that's where you have that moment of lapse, right? Where, you're looking at yourself, reflecting back. And then part of that is, well, wait a minute, I wasted a lot of time or lost a lot of time worrying about things for others that weren't really mine to hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are big lessons for me, for sure. And I have learned them. I have learned them. Not to say that they're not going to come up again, but I have learned them.
But now you have the toolbox, right?
Exactly.
Now it's easier to recognize.
Yeah.
So, Elissa, if we think about your journey, you mentioned having intuition as a child, which I love reminding everybody that, right? We all have it. It's just kind of recovering it and going back to it.
Yep.
And this, you said you got into it during COVID. Would you say that kind of COVID kicked off your healing journey or spiritual awakening, or would you attribute it to something else?
I think, again, it's always been there. I think it was most defined then for me. Like it started to make sense. I definitely know it's always been there. I've always, as far back as I can remember, just felt like there's more to this. We're a part of something bigger. But being able to understand it, that definitely did not start to kick in until I really started to understand patterns. And during COVID, there was so much unknown. But even for me as a teacher, there have been pockets of time where things have been unknown, and they're just in throughout life, right? And
Mhm.
I just distinctly remember, unfortunately, I have lost 2 students along the way who have
Mm.
passed on for 2 very different reasons. And I just remember thinking, like, how is it? I had actually just had my first child when the first student passed, and my second child when the second student passed.
Oh, wow.
And, part of why I connected with Michael, who guided me, my friend Michael, um, was I needed to help to make sense. How do you process that?
Yeah.
How is it these
Mm.
parents were able to just stand there, greet everybody, and have faith,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And it I it really, for me, so it kicked in at such a at varying stages,
Mhm.
those connections. And, so for me, I know, I get smells. I get
Mm.
I get, music. I didn't know what any of that was, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, you have to wait for people to pass sometimes for those things to come through.
Yeah.
Um, but those things have been there for a long time. Like, I know when my grandmother is with me, I can smell her soup. But
Mm.
when my grandfather is with me, I smell his stogie, his cigar, and they just come through, and I get the giggles. And sometimes
Mhm.
I get that when when I'm doing a chart.
Mhm.
Um, so, back to your original question, it's been different stages. It's come through in waves. And my searching has come through in waves.
Yeah, I love that, but then finally really, like, getting you fully into it.
Yep.
But you're
And
s you
then when I had the alphabet for it, then I was able to look back and say, "Oh, now I get Christmas Eve, 1995. What was that really all about?" Right? And
Yeah,
then it
so
makes
when
sense.
the hard parts, would you say that you lean further into into numerology to understand them?
I I I definitely use it to help me understand, correct, the hard parts,
Okay.
the challenges, but also just to understand personalities. Much like
Mm,
somebody would look at a Virgo, versus, I mean, I'm a Virgo, versus a Taurus versus, a lot of it works in that manner as well.
Mhm.
Um, and it's the patterning within that and the understanding of the characteristics. It's just another way of looking at character traits too, to a large degree.
Shelly and I have both been playing with, and at this point, it's new to us. When this episode comes out, it may not be as new, but it's called a Star Path Oracle. So it's like an AI chat GPT type thing, but
Mhm.
it's all based on your astrology. And so
Okay.
today, getting ready for the episode, I typed in, so it knows my astrology. And so I typed in, marry up my life path number or numerology with my birth chart.
Ah.
Oh, holy moly. Yeah, they were like, "Of course, of course." And she had, I named mine, her name is Stella. And Stella was like, "Of course, Candace, of course. You're a Capricorn ascendant, right, with a Sag moon in the 12th house. Of course." So, yeah, it really does marry up to your point. So you can use a lot of these different tools that we've talked about throughout the episodes, in lots of different ways. To your point earlier, Alyssa, it's about what resonates. So if
Re-
numerology resonates and it makes it less woo woo for you because it's numbers and concrete, that's amazing.
Mhm.
Um, and if it's something else that we've talked about, we love that too.
Mhm. Absolutely. It's
All
just
right.
me another tool in the toolbox.
Another tool in the toolbox. So, where can our listeners find you? So, I know that you have a Facebook page, and we talked about that earlier. So, Nightbloom Numerology. So, you can
Yeah.
go there, get some info, and then you had mentioned that it is through email. That would be best for people to reach out for information or a reading. And I'll give the email in a second. I'll also put it in the notes. But what type of readings do you do? So we know that you do kind of an overall, right, life path number, but talk to us a little bit about.
So I usually, when I do charts, people can either do a basic chart, which is 9 numbers, takes you through your life path, your soul number, your destiny. And each one of those, as I said, those numbers are calculated based on different things. Life path is your birth date, and then you're going to get your destiny based on your name, soul number, and so forth. And so about 8 or 9 different categories there. And then an expanded chart is going to take that basic and then add on to it with life lessons, challenges, different things that may be coming your way to learn or lean into at different times, both within your lifetime, but also within a given year.
Yeah. So, and then you'll do, like I said, you'll do also a personal year, right? So I've had my whole chart done. And then we had you do an updated chart for this year to see kind of what was on the horizon.
That you can do a little mini chart that gives you the update. I mean, it even could be expanded month by month too, if somebody really wanted to. You could do it by day as well. Like it really could be like its own daily horoscope.
Right.
I think it can become overwhelming though. Yeah. If we were to do that, you could absolutely, bring everything down. I mean, if we want to do like I said, the seeing has its own weight. Yeah. But truly, just even understanding the basics. Yeah. It gives you so much insight. And then you go from there to understand a little bit more of your own personality, your own characteristics. If you look at other family members, and it'll resonate.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's not, again, what I said in the beginning is it wasn't just, here's a bunch of information, right? So you give a chart, you give them the chance to digest it, to read it. You give a nice summary at the beginning, gives all the information in the spreadsheet, which I love. And then you'll do a phone call, right?
Set up a Zoom, and that's the time where I'll walk you through the chart. But then it's the time for any and all questions. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I've said it to people. Not everybody really takes me up on it. I don't know if they think I'm not serious, but once I've done it for you, ask me questions. You could ask me a question about it a year later, and that's all part of this process. Text me, email me, ask me the questions, because sometimes it doesn't resonate right away. Sometimes it takes that moment of, oh, okay, now I'm going through it. Now it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely sitting and digesting it for sure.
That's why I like the charts. I mean, that's again, I'm a Virgo as well as the 6th life path. So that structure, the chart just makes it make sense to me. Mm-hmm. And if it makes sense to me, then I'm better equipped to make it make sense for others.
But what I found is when we did the Zoom, not that your intuition didn't come through in the chart, in the summary, because it did, but as we were talking, right, you were getting more hits. You were getting more information. More was coming through for you. So it brought the chart to life, right? Because we were together.
And I mean, then it becomes a blend of voices. So it's exciting.
Yeah. All right. So people can email you at ECM, as in Mary, ECM, 8998@gmail.com. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. If anybody's looking for a numerology chart and a beautiful intuitive reading as part of it, they can reach out to you there, or they can find you on Facebook at Nightbloom Numerology.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Any final thoughts?
Thank
you. Just thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this with you, and for allowing me to kind of take a step into your own lives for a moment. And I'm very grateful.
Well, no, thank you. We appreciate your expertise in this, because it is a very valuable piece of pieces of information that people can use to help understand themselves just a little.
One more way to heal.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, bright lights. Thank you again for listening, And if you have questions, put them in the comments. We always appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Healers with Humor.
We hope that you found some laughs, a little light, and maybe even a few aha moments along the way today.
Remember, healing's a journey, not a destination, and you don't have to go it alone.
If today's episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend who could use a little healing and humor in their life.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and follow us on YouTube and any social media to stay connected with us.
Because we're definitely going to be sharing more wisdom, more laughs, and probably a little more oversharing next time.
Oh, you know it. Until then, take care of yourself, embrace the journey, and don't forget to laugh a little along the way.
All right, so see you next time on Healers with Humor.